It's gonna be raining for the next week, so I figure now is a better time than any to go ahead and pull the ECU out of this thing, send it off to Norton, get it flashed, get her some more go juice when I'm really trying to go. While they're taking care of that, I got a package off from Amazon. I got this button cluster that I had on my handlebar that I use to control my LED lights and my garage door opener, but these buttons weren't waterproof, so they went bad, and I actually didn't really like the look of how that sat. So I got some waterproof buttons that are actually blow a hole over here somewhere that I could still access and put all the buttons here. This plastic, there's nothing on the other side. I'm also not picturing I'll get rid of this anytime soon, so I'll blow holes through it all day. It's my bike, do what I want. Get that in there. Got a bike alarm, wireless, battery powered, but that's fine. I had the same thing on my pedal bike and it lasted for a good little bit, so I don't mind swapping out the batteries on this. But this is gonna go on the bike somewhere. That'll be my little security system. There it is. And then I got a switch and a splice for my ABS. I'm gonna have an ABS button so I can cut that off, bust out some stoppies, some wheelies, cut the ABS back on, get back on the road so I don't bust my ass. But that is what's about to take place. First thing I'm going to do is get to the ECU. That's going to require me taking off the gas tank and these plastics on the side. I still don't want to remove the fairings because now the fairings require me removing these Impact Tech race rails, and I don't want to do that either. And I'm also going to take off this little red fin piece on this side so I have better access to this plastic, so when I do my drilling and wiring and stuff from my buttons, that will make that so much easier. Alright, I've got the gas tank off, got access to everything I need. Took off that plastic fin piece right here so I can get to drilling my holes and stuff for my buttons, ABS, LED lights, all that. I got the ABS fuse right here, so I'll be playing with that. ECU is right under here, but I'm going to take the battery out first. Gotta take this bracket off so I can get to that. Then since I'm here, I'll go ahead and check my air filter. And if I'm feeling adventurous, I might even take that off and check my spark plugs and all that good stuff. So, making progress. Got the ECU out of the bike. Gonna send this off to Norton and get a flashed one in return. In the meantime, I'm gonna move on to getting this ABS fuse switch situation sorted out. Run the wires up there, and then I'll move on to figuring out how I want these buttons to be situated up here. So here's my plan. I popped the connector out on this half of the fuse, so I've got it dangling out the back here. What I'm going to do is I'll be able to still put the correct fuse in there, but on the other side of the fuse I can solder a wire, go through the fuse box up to the front where my switch will be, then out the switch, come back into the fuse box, and on this opposite side the wire will come through, and then I'll move this other half of the connector to here, and I'll be able to put the wire right into there. So I'll be able to retain the fuse placement and whatever level of waterproofing this little fuse box gives. So get that taken care of. So I got the 20 amp fuse in. Main power comes in on this side, goes through the fuse out the bottom, soldered a wire to this side of the fuse with very brief heat. I didn't want to melt the little run of wire or little run of filament in there, but I did get it soldered on there successfully. So then I'm going to run this wire up to my switch, and come back. And then it's going to come through that top hole right there. And then this is the other side. That used to be over here to connect directly to the fuse, but I've broken that connection. So now I can put the wire through there, have my switch come through there, and then plug it in there. Then I can turn my ABS on and off at will. We got the fuse box situated. I've got both my 20 amp fuses in there. Each fuse, one leg of them is connected to one of these wires, so it's basically going to be one run. So that's not going to affect, it's not going to blow early or mess anything up there, but that form factor helps me tap into that ABS circuit without having some crazy doing some extra stuff. And also I got that waterproofing still in place. So those wires will go up to my switch, which will be up here. Then I went on the computer and modeled. I actually sized the buttons and got them distributed the way I wanted them. I have my ABS button in the middle, and then my LED buttons on the side, on, off, change the color, flash, all the other good stuff that this LED kit has that I installed on the bike. All I have to do now is drill through at the center points here, and then make those holes bigger and drop the buttons in. And I verified on the opposite side that there's nothing in the way. There is this bracket right here that holds the plastic, or the plastic is held down here. This last button over here is going to come close, but it's not going to touch it. So I'm off by a couple millimeters, so that's going to be good position. So while I'm riding, I can just reach down, turn my ABS off, LED lights, all that good stuff. Then I can get rid of this, and I'm going to get a, what do you call it, quad lock, whatever you call them. Get a new phone mount, and that's where that's going to go. So I can get rid of this instead of having my buttons stretching my thumb trying to hit the buttons over here. I can just reach down here. I started drilling, but the drill bit was walking around on me, so I took an X-Acto knife and created dimples in the plastic so the drill bit would seat properly. Went around, drilled all my holes. My original plan was to keep going up in drill bit size until I created the size of hole that I needed. But one, I don't have that many drill bits, and two, as I was going up in size, the plastic was melting and kind of molding over itself instead of cutting and making a nice hole. So I actually have a step drill bit, and I went through the steps and created the size hole that I needed. I marked that step, and then I went around and cut the rest of the holes, which worked out pretty well. Got my buttons in there. They all fit pretty nicely. Then I got to the center, and since that's just one button, I punched it right through, and it just so happened to fall right where I needed it. For the wiring, I'm salvaging the little harness I made for the previous button cluster, so I don't have to do double work. I already got all the wires and connections there that I need. I started with the garage door opener, since that was what was giving me issues before. The button got shorted out and my garage door kept opening and closing. So I got one of the waterproof buttons. I got the shrink wrap on there to try and give it as much protection as I can. I went ahead and soldered that on. Got the shrink wrap over the exposed wire. Then I can plug that in and test that out. I had to turn off my music and the fan and all that good stuff so I could listen upstairs to hear if the garage door was opening and closing. Kind of freak the rest of my family out, but you know, we're down here doing science and stuff. It's all good. For everything else, I went ahead and cut out all those wires. The way that the key fob for the LED works is that each button gets pulled down to ground. So I had to take my ground wire and solder like four different wires onto that one wire, and then each button would have its own connection to ground. But I didn't want to just solder those wires to the button, so I had to make connectors for each one, so if a button does go bad, I can go back later and replace that button. Here you can see I'm just tying all those wires together, all those 4 wires together on that one green ground. I'll get that soldered, get the shrink wrap over it so it's protected as it can be. I'll strip each end of those grounds, get them tin tested. I tested them first to make sure there were no shorts, and then I went ahead and tinned them and soldered them to the appropriate wires. I had to extend some of the other wires so that when it's on the bike, none of the wires are getting stretched. You know, the bike Ninja 400, it vibrates quite a bit, so I want to make sure everything is where it needs to be, keep it protected. Just want to make a note. I got the I am in the basement. I am soldering. You'll see the smoke, but I've made a habit of just holding my breath, kind of fanning it away. I got the fan going, so I'm not huffing those fumes. So safety is it's on the list somewhere. Number 1, number 2, 3. It's on the list. It's all good. Get the shrink wrap going. More soldering. Got my little connectors. I don't have a one of those crimp pliers, so I could just one shot squeeze the pin onto the wire. I have to use a needle nose plier and bend the little tabs over and then get my solder going. It's takes a little bit longer, but it's the end. The goal is still the same. The end is still the same. So there's one connector, and I got 3 more to go. Just to show, got one button on there, all the connectors, and then that one button connects to the key fob that controls the lights. This was a decent light kit. See, the button drops right in there. It's just the key fob was kind of annoying before I did this because I would have to, while I'm riding, try to reach up to my keys and push the button to get the LEDs to change. So this solution works a lot better for me. I just have to do the rest of the buttons. Here I got a little close-up going, get some flux on there so the solder flow is a lot simpler. Get some solder on that tip, and all I have to do is touch it and boom, it's soldered. Cut that wire, get some shrink wrap up there, cover that connection. Then I just have to do that like 8 more times or something like that. You're getting that connector on there, using my needle nose plier, grab that sheathing first, and then close the tabs on the actual exposed wire. Some flux, clean the tip, get a little bit of flux on there, get that solder flowing. Beautiful. Push that into the connector. Push it in there until I hear it snap. A little screwdriver. And there's one of the buttons. Just a little close up. Showing again. This one's for the garage door. Yellow is going to be my garage door opener. But just drop that in. There she goes. Very nice. Yep. What else? Oh yeah. Here's the old one. So that's what I used to have going on. Little got a bunch of washers and stuff so it wasn't rubbing up against my handlebars, but sits off, and it was kind of cool in the beginning, but I didn't like it. So this is what I'm going with now. And then up under there you can see all the wires poking down, and those will be zip tied and cleaned up. I got the washer and the nut that go on the bottom of all these, so I have to go around and tighten all these buttons down so they don't vibrate loose. With that split washer, it'll bite into the plastic and keep it from backing out while the bike vibrates at like every RPM. And then I'll get that middle one for the ABS hooked up. I tied off the ABS button. Actually has its own light. Here you can see I'm testing it. ABS on off. And then I got for the ABS fuse box. If I wanted to remove the button, I can plug the two wires into each other, and then it'll be back to normal. No button involved. Get some shrink wrap on those connections, just so that they're somewhat waterproof. I actually went back and dropped a little hot glue around the tips of the shrink wrap just to make sure no water, dirt, anything like that gets in there. And then those wires run all the way up to the ABS button. So made my modifications to the airbox. Took out those snorkels, cut a bigger hole. Another one. Got a high flow DNA air filter. And I actually went with 2 short snorkels. Not exactly velocity stacks, but I just wanted to try it out, see how they would go on the butt dyno. And I also have, well, they're way up there, but I have the longer ones. I'm not going to try those, but from my limited research, the long intake runners help with power down low. The shorter ones will give me more power up high. So since the bike spends most of its time at like redline, we'll see how that goes. I'm coming over here, covered up the intake just so that nothing falls in there while I'm cutting plastic. And I'm actually going to go ahead and keep the pair valve on there. AIS system, whatever you want to call it. And keep that on there. See just how bad the popping is coming out the exhaust. Maybe it'll get some flames. Maybe it'll be annoying. Who knows? I'll know. Alright. Flash forward to a month later. As soon as I got the ECU, when I got off work that same night, I just went ahead, put it on the bike, put everything back together, took it out for a little test ride, and I loved it. I mean, granted, it's been a month since I rode, but I definitely feel in the butt dyno that I got a couple of more horsies going. Testing my buttons. I just got back from a ride. So testing my buttons. I got my garage door opener here for the LED lights. Where they at? The LED lights down there. I have my make them flash and make them fade. This turns, the black button turns them on and off. So if you can see that down there. Yeah, on and off. The red gets my color changing going. The green gets my flashing. And then the blue, I can do my little fade in and out, fade to different colors. And then my ABS button, if you look, if I hit that button, ABS turns off, and then all the good, interesting, fun things takes place. So overall, I'm happy with those. Then I'll I thought I was about to get robbed. As far as the airbox, since we cut all those holes in them, the bike sounds a lot different. It's definitely a throatier. It's definitely getting more air. You hear that induction going. Guess I'll do a little test sound. They always sound terrible over video, but you know, why not? So you can kind of hear when I turn the throttle, you hear it sucking in air. Sounds way better. And I didn't take the pair valve out, the AIS system, whatever you want to call it, little valve where you put the block off plate on. Left that in there. I figured if the gas is going to go shooting out the exhaust pipe anyway, I might as well ignite it and get some pops going so you can hear some of those. I'm interested in seeing if at night if there's any flames coming out of that little tailpipe there. But that's the end of that. As far as power is concerned, I didn't dyno it, but I can tell definitely when I'm clutchless shifting and I go up a gear, up a gear, up a gear, I can feel the kick. The kick is a lot more intense than when I had all the stock ECU, Airbox, all that stuff going. I can shift, I won't say earlier. So I find myself up in 6th gear. It's like, oh, I went through the whole gearbox. I'm doing 100. Oops. Let me dial it back some. I would definitely recommend getting your ECU flashed, opening up that airbox, getting that high flow air filter going, blow those holes in the airbox, put those shorter velocity stacks in there since you're going to be up in the RPM range anyway. There's not a lot going on down there at 5 and 6. All the good stuff happens up there 10, 11, 13. I also probably should have, now that I think about it, if you look, the red line is a lot higher. I wouldn't say a lot higher. I said a lot higher, but it's higher than it was before. I think it used to kick in at like 12, but now I'm hitting like 13, 14. So satisfied.